This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Welcome back to the Parick Madrid Show. Here's the number, sponsored by Catholic Order of Foresters, 888-914-9149, 888-914-9149. In just a moment, we're going to hear some wisdom from the comedian Rob Schneider. You may remember him from Steve Aroni, the Stevenator, making copies.
You can do it.
Saturday Night Live. You can do it. He's that guy. Funny guy.
And a Catholic.
Yeah.
As of, a couple months ago?
He just converted to the Catholic Church. Yeah. Funny guy, and he's a brother Catholic, too. That's cool. But the background to this that you'll hear from him in just a second has to do with United Airlines. They're in the news. Commentator Matt Walsh brought it up, a week ago, 10 days ago. Unbeknownst to me, I thought I was breaking the story, and I brought it up a day or two after that. But now this is a story that's really getting a lot of attention, and it has to do with this diversity quotas, racial and gender quotas in these big companies like United Airlines. So to give you just a bit of background here, and then we'll hear from Rob Schneider. United Airlines, this is from the Washington Examiner, CEO Scott Kirby has come under fire after a video surfaced of an interview he did touting his company's diversity initiatives, which limit white employees while emphasizing more women and minorities in its workforce. Kirby responded to a question about his diversity targets at the company saying, quote, "We have committed that 50% of the classes will be women or people of color." And by classes, I assume he means like the incoming classes for pilots and flight attendants, etc. Today, he says, only 19% of our pilots are women or people of color. He wants this to be higher, much higher than that. Axios interviewer Dan Premack said to Kirby in the interview from back in 2021, so the interviewer said, white males don't just dominate in the cockpits, but also in the C-suite at United Airlines. And Kirby, the CEO, who happens to be a white male, well, I'll put an asterisk next to that, and I'll come back to that in a second. He says he's proud of the diversity efforts in his company and has been focusing on raising the diversity numbers across the company. You may say, why is this guy doing this? Why is he hell-bent on doing this? He explained that he purposefully has women and minorities involved in the interviewing process at the company. Tech businessman Michael Seifert, responding and reacting to this, says DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is going to get people killed. And other people are saying something similar because the emphasis here is not on safety. The emphasis here, by his own admission, the CEO of United Airlines, is on diversity, and not diversity in the sense of let's get the best person there to fly the plane with, the kind of experience that you want. We just really care more about what color your skin is and whether or not you're a woman. But don't forget, by the way, he's sort of tangled in his own ideology, because if your sex that's assigned at birth, quote unquote, is just a social construct, then there is no such thing as a woman. And by the way, if there is no such thing as a woman, then there can't be toxic masculinity. You can't oppress women if the category of women doesn't really exist. So they can't have it both ways, but they do. They do have it both ways, as this guy does. So with that as the background now, with United Airlines being hell-bent on promoting through the DEI lens as opposed to people who are properly qualified, let's listen to what comedian Rob Schneider had to say.
The CEO of United Airlines last month, he announced of all the hiring for all the new pilots that are coming up this year, all the hiring for the new pilots, the main focus is going to be diversity. What? Diversity? Not the best pilots you can find? The ones with the most hours of experience? Ones you've done it before? Maybe?
I think I've heard you say the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You should be
You
doing
caught
some
me with a
stand-up.
mouthful of coffee. No, I mean, any normal, rational person, certainly anybody who flies commercial airliners, which is most people, I mean, don't you want the persons, there are two typically, don't you want the people up in the cockpit to be the best qualified people? Don't you want them to be in that position because they merit it by their experience and their study and their flight hours and their ability to land the plane safely? Don't you want that? Why on earth would you want somebody who's only there because of the color of her skin? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. And the point that the person made in the article I quoted is people will die. What does that mean? Planes will crash. I mean, it's as simple as that. What a terrifying thought to think about. But planes will crash and people will die if these cockamamie, stupid on stilts ideas. I mean, this is United Airlines, for heaven's sake. It may, in fact, be the second largest airline in the world. I know American Airlines is the largest, and they're not as pure as the wind-driven snow on issues like this, but they're not quite as crazy as United Airlines has been. So here's the other shoe that's, I mean, just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, it got a whole lot weirder. Okay, so back to United Airlines. The CEO, his name is Scott Kirby. You look at him, he's just like this middle-aged white guy. Very corporate looking, except he's not. And this is an article in the Post-Millennial. It's been revealed that the CEO of United Airlines, who is all about championing DEI measures for pilots at the company, he's also a drag queen. In photos, which you can see, Libs of TikTok has them, the CEO of United Airlines is seen dressed in drag, and other events sponsored by United Airlines has drag queens attending. The bombshell comes just as a video of Kirby in an interview with Axios is talking about DEI measures. DEI again, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a fellow I follow on Twitter, and he intentionally has the order different. His is DIE, same thing, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this article here points out that in this interview with Axios, he's talking about the DEI measures that the company's implementing. And in response to a question about DEI measures at the company, saying, we have committed that 50% of the classes will be women or people of color, which we heard in the other article. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And then he boasted, and by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country. When pressed for why there were not enough women and people of color, I'm so sick of that phrase. Everybody has a color. I mean, I know what it means. I know what it refers to, but can't we all just get along? There are not enough women and people of color in the C-suite, according to according to what he told the Axios interviewer. Kirby went on to explain how the company requires women and people of color to be engaged in the hiring process, in addition to photos posted by Libs of TikTok that reveal that Maya Tallman, Tallman, a trans-identifying male, is running the newly formed DEI committee at the company. That's United Airlines. Thank you. Hand that over, please. That's not going to work. I can feel my cranium about to explode. Thank you. Keep it handy, Cyrus. I'm not sure. In a letter sent to employees at United Airlines about this policy of DEI, Maya Tallman, do you get it? Sure. Do you get what they're doing? I'm going to say it again. I'll say it slowly. Maya Tallman.
Okay.
Maya Tallman.
Sure.
A tall man. Do you get it?
Right.
Okay. Maya Tallman explained in the committee that would be going by DEIB instead of DEI because the B in DEIEB stands for belonging. Belonging. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. You read my mind, Cyrus. United and other airlines have become embroiled in controversy in the last month over DEI practices. And I'm going to pause. You're saying, why is this important? Because if you fly on an airplane, or your wife or your kids or your husband or your parents fly on an airplane, these policies they may very well result in airplanes crashing and people dying. That's why this matters. It's not just like, what another crazy story. Those weirdos. This will affect people everywhere in the country. God forbid it does, but it very likely could. One report shows that the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA investigates accidents and they regulate the industry, et cetera, et cetera. But even the FAA now is doing this. Under the People with Disabilities program, the FAA, and this is a quote from their website, actively recruits, hires, promotes, retains, develops, and advances people with disabilities. That's cool. There's a place for everybody, if you ask me. There's a place for everybody, and everybody should, if they're qualified enough to work a particular job, I am all in favor of that. This is me speaking, Parick Madrid. I'm not quoting the article. It's just the way I look at it. And I think most people of goodwill would feel the same way. Like I said a few days ago, when you go into the grocery store and there's a young man who has Down syndrome or some other disability, I think it's great. And I applaud companies who go out of their way to hire people who have disabilities because it helps them. But not every job. I mean, would you have the young man who's bagging your groceries who is maybe severely autistic, or he has cerebral palsy perhaps, or he has maybe he's Down syndrome? And I know some people might be sensitive as to how these terms are used, and I don't mean any discomfort for anybody, but some people say, well, I would prefer if you said it this way. But all those things being the case, would that young man with that severe disability be appropriate to be the store manager or the bookkeeper? Or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody has their place, and people who are qualified and capable can handle certain jobs that other people, unfortunately, can't. So back to the FAA, they're saying we're actively recruiting, hiring, promoting, retaining, developing, and advancing people with disabilities, including the following: hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, dwarfism, and severe intellectual disability and psychiatric disability. The FAA is a very high-level, science-based, aeronautical science-based industry. It's a division of the government, obviously. I mean, does it really make sense that for most of the kinds of things that the FAA does, that somebody who has a psychiatric disability, would that person burdened by that disability be the right person to engage in that high-level science-based stuff? Probably not, would be my guess. What about the pilot of the airliner? Do you want somebody who has epilepsy or a severe intellectual disability or a psychiatric disability to be at the controls of the airliner? I'm guessing you probably wouldn't. Now, in fairness, they would probably say, oh, come on. Obviously, we're not going to hire a pilot who's missing extremities, who doesn't have arms because of a terrible accident, or a pilot who can't hear, or a pilot who has epilepsy. Obviously, we're not going to hire a pilot because you have to have arms and you have to be able to hear and you have to be, the things that you want pilots to be able to do. But what are some of the other things that are playing into this? So here we have the president, CEO of United Airlines. In his spare time, he's a drag queen. So connecting the dots here makes sense to me as to why at least he feels the impetus to force this upon the airline, and in so doing, to force this upon you, the traveling public. So this is a real problem, and I hope there's enough of an outcry, and maybe even the stockholders are going to punish some of these socially irresponsible, foolish things that they're doing in a way that will get their attention. So this is in the news right now. A lot of people are talking about it. I just want you to be aware of it. And let's hope and pray that it doesn't lead to some catastrophe. I really hope and pray that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you want to hear what it says? So when you sit down in your plane and you're about to take off, here's the overhead announcement that you just might hear.
Welcome aboard, folks. We are very proud to share that your pilot is the most diverse pilot on record. She is a 3'2" transgender pansexual Native American man who identifies as a 6'tall Korean woman. Any volunteers to help reach the controls are welcome. You will want to buckle up as her epilepsy is often triggered by the flashing lights in the cockpit. Remember to keep a whisper volume level, as she may have to consult instructional videos as a refresher during the flight. Now, can we get a big cheer for diversity?
This entire episode of the Parick Madrid Show is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. Don't delay. Download the app today. And thanks for listening.